Never go to the second location. Always trust your gut.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne, and you are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. And on Residue, you know that we talk about the truth behind your favorite films, and today we are doing another made-for-television film, a made-for-TV movie. This one is from 2023. It is a Lifetime movie titled Abducted by My Teacher, the Elizabeth Thomas Story. And before we begin, you know that you can find me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, TikTok at Residue, a true crime podcast, and Facebook, Residue, a true crime podcast. And do not forget that the greatest thing you could possibly do for any podcast that you love is leave a positive review. And today, I would love to share with you another positive review because you guys rule so damn hard. You rule so damn hard. Okay, the first review that I saw on Apple Podcast says, paranoid, 5 stars. I'm a crime junkie and this show is neck and neck, highly rated. Oh my damn goodness. Thank you so much. That is amazing compliment. And then I have another review that said, love this podcast, 5 stars. I love listening to the real stories behind the made-for-television shows. Chrissy is also hilarious and real. Definitely my top 5 podcast right now. It blows me away. You guys are so nice, and I love my listeners so much. And I thank you beyond belief. I wish there was a better way that I could thank you for always showing up, always supporting, and always making me feel like this is all worth it to put these episodes out every single week and have you show up. It's just, I love you. You rule. Resi Crew forever. I'm talking, Marky Mark banging on his chest forever. And before we begin this week's episode, I have to remind you that listener discretion is always advised. Abducted by My Teacher, the Elizabeth Thomas Story is a 2023 Lifetime true crime television movie based on the real 2017 kidnapping of a Tennessee teenager by her teacher. Now, this made-for-television movie is featured as a Lifetime ripped from the headlines movie, and Elizabeth Smart has established a long-term ongoing partnership with Lifetime as the executive producer and an advocate focusing on these ripped from the headlines produced movies. Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped at age 14 from her Salt Lake City home in 2002, and she was held captive for 9 months. She was rescued in 2003, and she has since become a prominent advocate for child abduction prevention and victims' rights. So before this movie begins, Elizabeth actually speaks to the viewer before they start watching it. And she lets you know, hello, I'm executive producer of this film. And she wants you to know before you watch it that these are very important stories to share because they involve a lot of bravery on the victim's part and they share a lot of honesty. So she wants you to watch this and respond with kindness and understanding and compassion. Because in this story, Elizabeth Thomas, the victim in Abducted by My Teacher, is groomed by her high school teacher. And a lot of people still don't understand exactly how grooming works. Grooming is a manipulation tactic used by abusers to gain the trust of a vulnerable person so that they can exploit or abuse them later, and often sexually. And it usually happens gradually, and it is designed to make the victim feel dependent on or loyal to the abuser. So according to medical and child safety experts, grooming is the intentional process of building a relationship with a child or a vulnerable person to manipulate and control them for exploitation or abuse. And it often begins with behaviors that appear harmless, like friendliness or mentorship. But over time, the abuser uses that relationship to gain power and cross boundaries. And experts explain that the main goal of grooming is to make the victim trust the abuser and feel emotionally connected to them, which makes it harder for the victim to recognize that they're even being abused. The abuser, they will target a vulnerable person, they'll build trust, they'll create a special relationship, and then they'll isolate, and then they'll test boundaries, and then the abuse or the exploitation begins. Abducted by My Teacher, the Elizabeth Thomas story is directed by Sean Linden. It's written by Christine Huntley. It stars Summer H. Howell as Elizabeth Thomas and Michael Fishman as Tad Cummins. Now, let me tell you something. I watched this entire movie. Great movie, by the way. And I kept thinking, man, the guy playing Tad looks so familiar. I can't understand how I can't figure out who he is. And I didn't want to Google it. I wanted to try to figure it out. And I never could. Until the very end, I Google it. Oh my God, it's DJ from Roseanne. Are you even kidding me right now? I had no idea. I'm like, man, he's playing such a good creeper. It's crazy to me how all of these characters from TV shows that we grew up watching, you know, like Fred Savage on the Wonder Years, moving on to the movie No One Would Tell, and now DJ from Roseanne, all these years later, I literally had no idea it was him. And also, just a heads up, you can watch this movie for free on Tubi currently. The year is 2015, and we are in Culleoka, Tennessee. Now, this is this small-ass town, the kind of town where everyone knows everyone, and they only have one grocery store, one gas station, and one public school. And this school has every single grade, K through 12. So you know that all of these kids grew up together. They all know each other. Everyone is in everyone else's business. 15-year-old Elizabeth Thomas was a little spitfire, according to her sister. Now, Elizabeth had 9 brothers and sisters, and they were all homeschooled. They never stepped foot inside of a public school in their entire lives. Elizabeth's sister, Brandy, said that Elizabeth was a really smart girl and she loved to play guitar. She also loved to practice for the church choir. She was a tomboy and she was really sweet. She just had such a difficult childhood. Now, these children were being raised in a very violent home. Their mother was physically violent, physically abusive, and the kids were afraid of their mother. And their dad says that he didn't realize what was going on. Their dad's name was Anthony Thomas. Now, he worked long hours in pest control. He said that he had no idea how bad it was in the home. And he says that he never even found out that there was abuse going on inside of this home until he came home from work one day. He sees all these caseworkers and all of these sheriff deputies standing on his front lawn. In an interview with 2020, which was one of my main sources, you can find it linked in the show notes, Elizabeth talks about how her and her brothers and sisters got together and they decided that they need to do something about this. They cannot live like this anymore. Elizabeth says that it all came to a head when one of her siblings was hit by her mother with a 2x4. And they're like, no. This is over. They write this letter to Child Protective Services and they wait. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if their mom's going to find out they wrote this letter. And if she does find out, what is she going to do? Now, they allude to this abuse in the movie a little bit, but they don't really go into detail. So according to a Tennessean article that I found online, they accuse Elizabeth's mother of bloody beatings, forced nudity, and confinement to a basement, and that these are just a few of the violent and humiliating conditions that were detailed in court documents where Kimberly Thomas is accused of child abuse and neglect. So their mother, Kim Thomas, she's removed from the home. She's charged with 5 counts of abuse and neglect. And she even goes on the news and does this interview and she's wearing a neck brace in it. She looks so guilty. And she says, I'm not guilty of this. So she's taken out of the home. She's removed. And now there's no one to homeschool the kids. So for the first time in her life, in 15 years, Elizabeth has to enter a public school. And this was just so disorienting to her because she's never been inside of one of these schools. And she actually says that being inside of this public school was like, quote, walking through New York City. She was bullied immediately. I mean, these kids were ruthless, which is kind of just disgusting because this girl has already dealt with so much shit and you're gonna bully her because her mom beat her? Oh my God, look at her. Her mom beats her. What a bunch of fucking little assholes, honestly. So Elizabeth says that the first thing that happened when she walks in the school is they call her ugly. Like immediately. And she knew she couldn't disrupt these cliques. These kids have known each other their entire childhood. She had no one to turn to, no friend group at all. And then she meets her health science teacher, and he steps up to provide support to this vulnerable young lady. And his name was Tad Cummins. And now he was super popular with the students. The kids adored this guy. He let them do their own thing. He let them call him by his first name. All of them are walking around calling him Tad. Now, Tad Cummins is described as a masterfully manipulative predator. That came out of my mouth kind of weird. Masterfully manipulative predator. Rural juror. And according to an All That's Interesting article, Elizabeth said, he made me feel like I didn't have anyone else and no one really cared about me like he did. And now just to give you a little background on the type of personality that Tad had, one of his ex-coworkers was interviewed by 2020, and this coworker said that Tad actually used to work at the hospital with him, and he was a respiratory therapist. He made good money, but he was a bully. He would call other coworkers stupid. He didn't take no for an answer. He was always getting into arguments. He did not like authority, and this coworker says it makes perfect sense that Tad would go and get a job at high school and become a teacher, because who can say no to a teacher? Nobody says no to the teacher. They believe that Tad went and got this new career started because it was good for his ego. So Tad over here can pick up on the fact that Elizabeth has a rough life. She's had a bad childhood. He probably already knew, like everyone else, when she came into that school, what she's already dealt with. I mean, the whole town is always talking, and he starts following her around. She says that one day she's walking into the lunchroom and she stops before she enters the busy-ass, scary lunchroom. And one of her friends that's standing with her says, "Hey, are you hungry?" And Elizabeth kind of makes a joke. I don't really understand the joke, but she says, "I don't have a soul. So if I was hungry, I'd have to have a soul, but I don't, so I'm not that hungry." And apparently Tad hears this, and she's just kind of joking with her friends. And he says, "Hey, my soul sees your soul." And Elizabeth is immediately creeped out. I mean, can you even imagine this situation, standing at the lunchroom, the doorway to the scary lunchroom, and your teacher's whispering, "My soul sees your soul"? Now, that seems super creepy and strange to me, but apparently everyone in town adored Tad. Everyone in school loved him. The teachers adored him. The students adored him. His sister said that he was this amazing brother growing up. He was a charismatic man. He was a church-going man. We have to add that in because everyone has to tell you that Tad was a church-going man. He met his wife Jill Cummins when she was 17 and he was 18, and they immediately clicked. It was love at first sight. High school sweethearts. They got married right out of high school, and they had 2 kids, 2 daughters. And their daughters say that they had the most perfect life growing up. Their dad was their hero. And they also say, our dad is a wonderful Christian man, and God was the most important thing to him. And he taught the family everything that they learned about, religion and God and worshiping and faith, and they looked up to him so much. Now at school, Elizabeth is having a rough go at it. She's not really making any friends. She does not like sitting in the lunchroom, and she learns that there are some other students that sit inside of Tad's classroom during lunch, and they all hang out like he's a buddy to them. So she starts doing that, and she starts talking to Tad and opening up to him because he's telling her that she's a great kid. He tells her how proud he is of how she's handling this situation. And this is where the grooming begins. Elizabeth feels like she has no one else in this world to talk to. She has no friends, and there's this man who's positioning himself as her savior, basically. I mean, this 15-year-old girl, she's feeling seen for the first time in her entire life, and he's listening to what she has to say, and he's making her feel comforted. Now, here's where he's dropping in little manipulation techniques, and Elizabeth is confiding in him. She's telling him, listen, I think I should probably see a therapist. Should I talk to the school psychologist? Do you know anyone that I could talk to? And he's like, no. The last thing you're going to do is talk to anybody else. You talk to me. I'm here for you. He's positioning himself as this type of father figure. Elizabeth recalls on ABC's 2020 that whenever she tried to seek mental help, he said no. She said, I told him I'm feeling really low, and he said, do not do it, because if you go to therapy, it's going to change the person that you are. And I like this person that you are. We don't want to change that. So Tad starts talking to his wife about Elizabeth, telling her that he met this teenager at school that's got all of these issues with her family. And, maybe we should welcome her into our family a little bit. I think it would be a really good idea if we brought her to church with us. And he's telling his wife that this is sort of like a father-daughter relationship. He wants to mentor this girl, and he even gives her a gift. He gives her a Bible. And his wife has no problem with this. She doesn't think anything is wrong with the fact that her husband is bringing home one of his students. I mean, he has his own daughters, right? He has 2 daughters at home, and telling his wife that he really needs to help this child. And you have to remember that at this point, Elizabeth barely ever sees her own father. I mean, her father didn't even know that abuse was going on in the home, but he's trying now. He is trying, but he also has a large family that he needs to take care of, so he's working a lot. And Elizabeth is looking and seeking out some sort of father-daughter relationship, and Tad knew this, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He tells Elizabeth, obviously, we cannot talk outside of school. You're my student. I'm your teacher. We can get in a lot of trouble for this, even though we're just talking. So why don't we create fake Instagram accounts? I have the greatest plan. They'll create Finstas, and he creates his own fake account, and Elizabeth creates her account, and he starts DMing Elizabeth every single day. And at first, these DMs are just some friendly talk. But then he starts really using the account. Grown-ass man, married, 2 kids, creating fake Instagram accounts. Good God above. And he's posting memes like, "You're all my heart ever talks about." Like a little flowery meme that says, "It was love at first sight." Grown man, "You're all my heart ever talks about." What the hell is that shit? And now Elizabeth is posting, she's 15, she's posting, "I look forward to going to school just to see you." And then come the "I love you" memes. And then the sexting starts. Now he starts it. And this is a grooming technique. He's using this manipulative behavior to gain access to Elizabeth. So it's like tiny little things that will convince Elizabeth that she's the one that's making the choice to do this stuff, that she is also making a choice to be in this relationship. But Elizabeth can't say no because she's afraid. And if she did say no, Tad wouldn't let her. There are many instances where she'll say, "Oh, I want to go to therapy." "No." "Oh, I really don't think we should be doing this." "No." He's always telling her no, and so she doesn't really ever feel like she actually has a choice. So his sexting starts out like, "Hey, I saw you next to your locker this morning with your backpack on, and I thought, yeah, that's a nice ass right there." Whew. And then right to her face one day in the classroom, Tad says, "You know what? You would look pretty nice naked." Now this freaks Elizabeth out. She doesn't know what to do, though. Still, she doesn't know who to tell. She doesn't know how to get out of this. And she feels like somebody's paying attention to her. And then it very quickly moved to him kissing her. And she said that when it did progress and he did start kissing her inside of the classroom, she was really scared. she didn't know what to do. She said that sometimes in the classroom, after all the other kids left the room, he would pull her into a closet and she didn't know what to say. She said she was too scared to say anything, so she hid it from everybody. So Elizabeth had an after-school job. She worked at a Chick-fil-A, and she would be on the clock working. Tad would drive his grown ass to this teenage girl's job, sit outside, even if she was on break and he had to wait an hour, he didn't care. He would sit outside and wait for her to come out of that business, and he would make her do inappropriate things in the car. And those were Elizabeth's words on 2020. He would make me do inappropriate things. Finally, Tad gets caught because he has Elizabeth in his classroom after everyone else has left, but a 12-year-old student left her backpack in his classroom. So she comes running back to the classroom to get it. But when she walks in, she sees Tad kissing Elizabeth. But Tad doesn't know. Tad does not know that this child saw this. And this child, thankfully, great job done by this 12-year-old. She runs and tells immediately. And the school immediately puts a no contact order into place. They rip Elizabeth out of Tad's classrooms. He is not allowed to see her. And she isn't really being told at first why. And she said that a part of her thought, like, I want to see him. She's so used to seeing him. She's being groomed. She's in this cycle, but they weren't allowed to talk to each other. So the school looks into the kiss and they say, nope, we're all good. No evidence that it even really happened. So we're just going to squash this whole thing and get everything going back to normal. But thankfully, Marcus Albright from the sheriff's department goes, no. We're not going to just push this under the rug. We're going to keep looking into this. I mean, the school could basically give two shits that anything happened. And they're like, well, we don't have a lot of evidence. What do you mean? A 12-year-old just told you she saw it happen. What other evidence do you need? Do you think she's lying about that? Like, everyone thinks that Tad is just this great guy that would never do that. And they, start talking to Tad, the detectives, and he comes into this interrogation and he's telling them, no. Nothing happened. Listen. Elizabeth, she's a troubled child. She came into my classroom. She was in a panic. She started having a panic attack and I kind of hugged her to calm her down. The only thing is, during this whole story that Tad is spinning, he keeps changing his story. He's telling detectives he hugged her. He didn't kiss her. He just hugged her. And then he's telling them, maybe I grabbed her wrist. I don't know. I can't remember. Now, this incident only happened a week prior. And all of a sudden, Tad can't remember what actually happened that day. So detectives are just on to him. They do not think he is telling the truth. They said he was shaking a lot in the interrogation. He was crying. He kept saying, I'm the nicest guy you will ever encounter in every situation. He also starts telling detectives and claiming that he didn't even try to text Elizabeth after all of this happened and they were told no contact. It was Elizabeth who wouldn't leave him alone. And it was really annoying. And he didn't really want to talk to her. He didn't know what to say to her, but she was just adamant that they still speak to each other. So detectives ask him, well, then why did you delete your entire text thread with Elizabeth? And he said, it's just because she was annoying me and I didn't want to look at these anymore. I'm a married man. He's telling detectives that Elizabeth's texts were making him uncomfortable because he's been married for 31 years. And he says, I have never touched another woman in all of those 31 years. And he says that over and over. And I'm watching that and I'm like, yeah, you know what, Tad? You haven't touched another woman, but you've been touching little girls. Because when all of this comes out and the whole little town is talking behind everyone's back, they have a girl that comes forward. And she was also having some crazy, weird experiences with her teacher, Tad Cummins. Yes, that is right. This is not Tad's first rodeo when it comes to grooming children inside of his classroom. There was a girl named Destiny Parrish. Now, she was graduated from this high school, but she comes forward to talk to 2020 and tells them that At this time, her parents were going through this horrible divorce. She was very vulnerable, and she also would hang out in Tad's room. This was a couple years prior, and he would talk to her, and he would help her feel better, and he was making her feel uncomfortable. She didn't really understand. She wasn't picking up on what was happening. She's 15. She wouldn't think in her wildest dreams that her teacher is trying to make sexual advances. And so she actually has a legit real recording on her phone that they play on this 2020 episode where she walks into the music room and Tad is sitting at the piano and he starts playing the piano and singing to her. And she's like, wow, he's got kind of a good voice. I mean, he's in the choir at church. He's a great piano player in her mind, not mine. And she's recording him and they play this recording and it is one of the creepiest things I have ever heard. Now listen, Tad is sitting there singing, and he's singing, I could swim the oceans in your eyes. First of all, I could swim the oceans in your eyes. You guys, is this a real song or did Tad make this up? And then he's singing, you're the kind of woman a man could love for the rest of his life. He's singing this to a 15-year-old girl and she's videotaping him. Thank God, because now she has this proof that this man is a predator. What are you saying? I could swim the oceans in your eyes and you're the kind of woman a man can love for the rest of his life. Did Tad write that himself? So this girl ended up moving away and it had nothing to do with this situation with Tad. Her family was in the process of moving, so she moved out of town and she says nothing happened after that. But when she heard about Elizabeth, she was like, wait a minute, whoa. And get ready to be shocked one more time, because if you think it was bad that the school wasn't going to do shit about this kiss that another student saw, well, they never told Elizabeth's dad that this even happened. He had absolutely no idea. He gets a phone call, I believe, from the media one day, and they're asking him about this situation. He's like, whoa, hold up. What are you guys talking about? And they're like, your daughter. She was assaulted, apparently, by her teacher. He's like, which daughter? Like, that's how little he knew. And then he goes and gets himself a lawyer because he's like, hey, wait a minute. You are not allowed to not talk to me about what is going on inside of that school when it pertains to my daughter. I mean, think about this. They had Elizabeth in the principal's office talking to detectives, talking to other advisors in the school, and not one person told her father that this was going on. So her father gets a lawyer. He writes up this really great letter to the school, basically putting them on notice, saying, you need to keep this man away from my child or else. And so that is finally when the school suspends Tad Cummins. And he has to tell his wife he's been suspended. And of course, she's like, it's okay. I stand by you. And she says that they started praying about it. Now, nobody's blaming Tad at this point. He's blaming Elizabeth. And everyone in town is calling Elizabeth a little whore. Those are her. She says she was called a whore. They're calling her a girl that likes old men. Not one person is saying this is Tad's fault. What is going on here? Why is everybody rallying around this predator? You think the 15-year-old girl is going after the 50-year-old disgusting health science teacher who's been married for 31 years with 2 children? You think that was her game plan? What was she getting out of that? So Tad's wife is sticking by his side. The whole community is actually sticking by his side. I mean, Elizabeth is getting tortured. Everyone in school is so upset with her because their favorite teacher has been suspended and it's all her fault because she's such a whore. And this is another great grooming technique that Tad uses. He would tell Elizabeth that it is her fault, that he fell in love with her because it's her fault. He has a great wife at home. She is an amazing woman. She is the perfect wife, and he just couldn't help himself because Elizabeth is so beautiful and so hot. There is no way that he could say no to her. This is all her fault. So if this would have stopped right now, this is it. They don't talk to each other ever again. I mean, he would have been fired. He would have probably gotten his teaching license taken away, but he wouldn't have been sent to jail. But no. Tad keeps it going. And on Monday, March 13th, 2017, Tad goes to Instagram and he makes a post and it says, It's a beautiful day to start. So that morning, Tad asks his wife, can I have your car? Because I'm going to go on a job interview because now I don't have a job because I was screwing around with our 15-year-old student in my class. Can I borrow your car? She's like, yeah, sure. And then Elizabeth wakes up that morning and she tells her sister, if I am not back home by 6:00 p.m., I need you to come find me. But her sister was asleep. It was early morning and her sister's like, okay, goes back to bed. So Elizabeth has to work at 8 a.m. She goes into this job she has now at a place called Shoney's, and Tad comes there by 9:00 a.m. Elizabeth gets into his car, and the two are off. And now Elizabeth's father gets home from work that night, and he's asking, where's Elizabeth? Her sister's like, oh my God. She said if she's not home by 6, we have to call, we have to get help, we have to try to find her. So they start calling Elizabeth, texting her. She's not responding. This is not like her. She's not at work. So he immediately calls the police and he says, you better figure out where Tad Cummins is right now because I know that he has my daughter. So police are looking into where Tad is. And Tad never came home that day. So his wife actually finds this letter in their home. It's a letter from Tad. And when she first finds it, she does not call the police. She waits till the next morning. But this letter read, Jill, I'm so sorry. I'm on my way to Virginia Beach or maybe DC just to clear my mind. I'm not running away. I will be back. Don't call the police. They'll think I'm guilty and I'm not. I love you and I'll call you soon. So please forgive me. Now, she also tells police when she waits an entire night and calls the next morning that he took $4,000 out of their safe and his guns were missing. Detectives already had Tad all figured out. They know what kind of person this guy is, and they read this letter. They also say, you know what? His wife was amazing. She was very cooperative. She was a strong woman. She was really putting up with a lot of shit at this point. She let the FBI is now involved. She let the FBI, all the detectives come into her home and just look through everything to figure out where he could have possibly gone. And they clock him right away. They're like, why would you write, I'm going to Virginia or possibly DC? He wrote that to throw the cops off. They know that he's actually going to be going in the opposite direction than what he wrote in that letter. And they know that this guy is taking a lot of precautions. He took $4,000 in cash, which means he's not going to leave a credit card trail. He threw his phone into the river. And he threw Elizabeth's phone into a river because their phones stop pinging right at that river. Immediately, an Amber Alert goes out and the whole country is on alert. The whole community is talking. And this just becomes like a media circus in this town. And of course, Tad's wife, she's in complete shock. She says that, she's been married to Tad since she was 17. He is her best friend. She cannot believe for the life of her how this is happening, how this person that she believed she knew with all of her heart is behaving this way. And she tells detectives, now listen, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but Tad actually filled one prescription for 2 months before he left. And he took that with him. It's not in the house. And that prescription was Cialis, the erectile dysfunction pill. So detectives know, okay, we have to find this guy because he's not out there doing nice things with this girl. Detectives uncovered that the day before Tad left, not only did he refill his erectile dysfunction pills, he took out a payday loan. He went to Walmart. He bought hair color and he bought maps because he was getting rid of his cell phone. He disabled his GPS. He bought sleeping bags and camping gear. And he also stole license plates off of other vehicles that were similar to his. This man is on the run with a 15-year-old girl. And his wife, Jill, gets on TV, just embarrassed beyond belief, totally out of her comfort zone. She gets on TV and she just begs him to come home. She's like, please stop. What are you doing? Just come home. We can talk about this. And obviously, he wasn't coming back. But then Elizabeth's dad also goes on TV and begs for Elizabeth to get away. He's like, Elizabeth, come on, get away from him. And in any position you can get yourself into where you can get away from this man and run to somebody and tell them that you need help, please do that. I mean, obviously we have a father, a wife going on TV begging for the return of their loved ones, and the media is taking over this entire community. And, this is something that a lot of people are going to want to talk about. This is big news at the time. And they interview these church-going women on the news channel in town, and they say stuff like, yeah, she's the type of girl that would want to go. She's the type of girl that would want to break up a marriage. What are you talking about? I said it before, I'll say it again. The guy was 50 years old, married for 31 years, 2 children, and needed erectile dysfunction pills. He was a teacher, and you think that this 15-year-old girl was like, hell yeah, I'm getting my hands on that. It drives me mad that people are blaming Elizabeth for this. And Elizabeth states in this 2020 interview that it still goes on to this day. People still think this was all her fault. So detectives look through Tad's search history, and he searched what states allow teenage marriage, which is, mind-blowing. But then they look at Elizabeth's Instagram account, and she has changed her bio to the word wife, which starts to freak everybody out. So 16 days in, detectives get a lead, and it comes from a Super 8 motel. And the staff calls and says that Tad actually rented a room in their hotel, and he asked for directions to a Walmart. So they start realizing, okay, Tad isn't using a different name in all of these motels that he must be stopping in. And they think, you know what? Maybe he likes Super 8 motels. So they call the corporate headquarters of Super 8, and they get just basically this directory to every single Super 8 motel in the entire country, and they all start cold calling every single motel on that list, and they finally get a hit. It's in Oklahoma. The staff tells them that yes, Tad used his own ID in this Oklahoma motel, and they also said he was asking us how to get to Walmart. So the police go and they watch the surveillance footage from Walmart's, and they see that Tad is buying food at this Walmart. And you know what else he's buying? KY jelly. That's not the first lead they get. So they start getting all of these tips that are coming in, but they're all fake. They look into every single tip that they're getting, but they start realizing oh my God, Tad looks like any other guy out there. And they're getting all of these calls from Walmarts or gas stations. Look, we think we saw them in the store together, but it's not them. They just look so anonymous. Tad really made them look like they could just be anyone on the street. So it was very difficult for police to find them. Now, these two have gone off the grid. He threw away their phones. He did buy this iPad, and he was using free Wi-Fi so he could look up this certain place that he really wanted to go. It was called the Black Bear Ranch. Now, they even have this documentary about the Black Bear Ranch. It's this commune that's off grid, and they are this tiny little community in Northern California where it is said that this is not a good place to, quote, blend in. I mean, Tad thinks he's going to this commune to kind of blend in, but in this little tiny town, the tiniest town that ever existed, everyone knows everyone. So they're in this tiny little town called Cecilville. And, like I said, town where everyone knows everyone's business. And they are calling themselves John and Joanna Castro. He's 40, she's 23. They are a married couple who lost their house in Denver from a fire. And now they're trying to make ends meet and start over again. And they meet this guy. Oh, wait, I have to say, what a very elaborate story. The worst thing is when someone is lying to you, they will make up the most elaborate story. They won't just say, yeah, we're just trying to get back on our feet again. It's like, hello, we are John. I am 40. She is Joanne. She is 23. We had a house fire. We're coming from Denver. Ridiculous. So they meet this guy named Griffin Barry. Griffin Barry is a cool ass dude. We like Griffin Barry. He works at this gas station, and they're kind of telling him their sad story, and he feels bad for them. And he's a young dude too. And he even gives them $15. He fills up their gas tank with $15, and he tells them, here, this is all I can really do for you guys. Now, Griffin even tells them that they should go meet his friend named Pete. Pete has some odd jobs that he can give Tad. Maybe they can make a couple bucks, but Tad's like, no, we're going to Black Bear Ranch. I mean, Griffin's trying to be helpful, and he tells them, listen, Black Bear Ranch is a pretty rough area to be. Like, you're really going to have to become a part of their community. I don't think you should go there. I think you should talk to my friend Pete. So they talk to Pete, but Pete says, listen, I don't have any work available now. So Tad says, okay, we're off. We're going to Black Bear Ranch, which I said is an off-grid homesteading community with absolutely no contact to the outside world, which would seem like, well, this would be the perfect place for Tad to take Elizabeth. But they get there, they get to the ranch, and these people are very welcoming. They allow them to come in, but they warn them, listen, if you're going to stay here, you've got to be a part of the community, and you've got to work, and you've got to do what we tell you because this is free. You're going to live on our land. You're going to do what we say. And they're very private people, you know? Tad doesn't do shit. He doesn't work. He doesn't help out. In fact, he stays in bed all day with Elizabeth. And it gets to the point where these people in this community are like, get the hell out of here. We don't want you here. We want you to go. So they get back into their vehicle, they drive all the way back to Cecilville, and they see Griffin again. Griffin, our hero. And he says, you know what, guys, I do feel really bad for you. I feel awful that this is happening. So he tells them there's this abandoned cabin in the back behind, like, the gas station in the woods. It's really, really rough, really dirty. There's nothing but just a dirty mattress on the ground, but you guys can stay there, okay? So Griffin goes back and tells his friend Pete, hey, you know those two? I tried to get them a job and you didn't have any work. I'm letting them stay in the cabin. And Pete is like, what? We also like Pete. Pete's a thinker here. Pete's opening his eyes to this. He's like, what's up with these two? And he remembers that he saw a story on the news about a girl who was abducted by her teacher. And so he Googles it, and up comes Tad's picture. So they call the police. Elizabeth has been missing for 37 days, and the call comes in, and a SWAT team is sent to Cecilville. They arrived at the campground that Tad and Elizabeth were staying at 3 a.m. And they're all hidden in the forest around this cabin. And the plan is that Griffin is going to get them to come out of the cabin. He's going to lure them out. And he does. He kind of yells their names. Tad comes out, and the SWAT team just rushes him. And they also do handcuff Elizabeth. They get them both in handcuffs, but they're telling her, like, you're okay. We're here to help you. And finally, after 38 days, 15-year-old Elizabeth is reunited with her family. And they say when they saw her, she was so tiny and frail. She wasn't eating. Griffin actually states that he gave Elizabeth some food, and she acted so excited about getting something to eat. He said she just looked so small and frail. Now, when Elizabeth returned home, her father says that she was still a mess. She was still, quote, under his spell. And she still believed that she was in love with him. She was actually angry at the detectives for a bit because she was emotionally tied to Tad. And she basically had to be put back together piece by piece. Elizabeth didn't realize that she was a victim. So when she returned home, her family is trying to help her. Detectives are on her side. Everyone is trying to help her realize that she was preyed upon. She was manipulated. And it's almost like, you know, when your friend is going through something horrible and you can see it all happening, you can see it go down, you can see they should get out of this relationship, but they can't see it because they're trapped in the middle of it. And mentally, that's where Elizabeth was at. At only 15 years old, she's trapped in the middle of this manipulation, and she didn't know how to get out of it. And she took the time to learn about what happened to her. She went to therapy. She was so brave and so strong. And she started to see what happened to her. And she said that he did this. This was not her fault. And she decided in her own mind that it's time to start speaking up and letting people know what happened. It's time to start speaking up and letting people know how to set boundaries, because she thinks, you know what? If I was able to see what was happening, if I knew that I should set boundaries with a person like this, then maybe this wouldn't have happened to me. But he knew that I was vulnerable and he took advantage of that. And so I want young women to see my story and I want them to see the dangers and I want them to know that it is very important that they set boundaries with people like this in their lives. Elizabeth was interviewed by 2020 and she did describe some of the things that happened to her. She said that Tad would tell her, if I can't have you, then I'm going to kill myself. She also said that he would never allow her out of his sight, and he made her sleep naked, and he kept her clothes and would not give them back to her. He would also follow her to the bathroom and watch her. There wasn't 1 second where that man didn't have his eye on her. She said that it made her feel dirty and disgusting, and he called her his wife. And she didn't like this. And now people ask her, well, didn't you have a choice? You had a choice to leave. And she's like, no, I didn't have a choice. I had no choice. He made my choices. My choices were made by him. He groomed this 15-year-old child to make her believe that this is what she wanted. Tad is arrested, taken in for interrogation, and to the officers, it seemed like this was a relief, that he was the type of guy that wants to tell his story. He wants to show you how awesome and cool he is. He's a tool bag. Tad the tool bag. There is a detective on the 2020. His name is Special Agent Sterling Wall. He says that the interrogation was sort of like story time with Tad. Like, he didn't want to talk about all the bad things he did. He just wanted to talk about how he was such a father figure and a savior for Elizabeth. And he would sit there in the interrogation room and go, yeah, I'm done. I'm ready. I'm ready to leave all of this behind. Like, it didn't even register to this tool bag that he did something wrong, that he was about to go to prison. He's like, you know what? I'm kind of ready to get home and start my life over again with Jill and my kids. But Jill had other plans. And I know you might have thought that Jill might have stood by his side, but he had a phone call. He called his wife, Jill. And she said, hey, did you sleep with her? And he says, yes. And then Jill divorced his ass. Tad is still being interviewed by detectives and they ask him like, hey, we need to know if you had any sexual contact. And he's refusing to say this. He's refusing to say, yes, he did. But he starts crying and he's getting emotional and he just yells, yes, of course we did. She's a very sexual kid. Those words came out of his mouth. He called her a sexual kid, and then he wondered why the hell he was going to prison. And oh yes, Tad was going to prison. He pleaded guilty, and at his sentencing, Elizabeth got to speak. Now, Elizabeth was a nervous wreck. She was a mess. They said that you could see her physically shaking. It took her a really long time to get the courage to say what she wanted to say, but she did it. Because she is a strong-ass girl. She got up there in front of him and she said, Mr. Cummins, what you did to me is unspeakable. And I don't know that any words could ever accurately express how much pain I have suffered and continue to suffer because of you. All you were was a man who wanted sex, and you manipulated me and you used me just for that. You saw a broken girl who was lonely, scared, and traumatized, and you made her feel safe and loved because you saw what she needed and you made her feel that you would be her protector. The judge agreed with Elizabeth and said that Tad Cummins was despicable, and he sentenced him to 20 years in prison. The earliest that Tad could be released is 2034. The Thomas family sued the Board of Education in their county, and they settled for $650,000. And that school says, you know what? Hey, even though we settled, listen, this does not constitute an admission. We did not have any duty to tell her father anything. So, yeah, that's where they still stand. And on a happy note, there was a reward for $10,000 for any information as to where Tad and Elizabeth were, and that award was granted to Griffin Barry, the man who called the police. And I really hope Griffin shared that reward with Pete, because Pete did some Googling, and Pete really got the ball rolling there. Elizabeth likes to remain private, She really wanted to share her story. When Lifetime TV offered the chance to tell her story in a made-for-TV movie, she said, I need to tell my story because young women everywhere need to know that they need to put down boundaries and they need to say something. They have to say something if someone is making them feel like something is wrong. Elizabeth married her best friend, Skylar, and they had a son together, and she says that he's a great guy, her husband. They love to stay home, they love to watch movies together, they're homebodies, and she just wants to lead a quiet life. Tad never took any responsibility, because that's the type of guy Tad is. It's always someone else's fault with these guys, you know what I mean? You know who he blamed? I'm going to let you have 3 guesses. Now, I'm going to tell you. He blamed the devil. Yes, this God-loving man, this church-going man, he said the devil did it. The devil made him do it. I'm telling you, there is no hope for people like this. Never gonna accept responsibility. And on that, let's end this with something very amazing that Elizabeth said. She said, wait a minute. So he's blaming the devil? He's just a coward who is blaming anyone but himself. He can say all day long that the devil made him do it, but he is the devil. Stay safe and stay paranoid. Residue is created, hosted, written, researched, edited, and produced by me, Chrissy. Thank you all so much for joining me this week on Residue, and I hope to see you again next week. Stay paranoid.